Welcome back to the Mountain Witch Tarot channel. I am your host, Sarah, and today we are going to be looking at Donald Trump's second week of October. Before we get started, if you would, please take a moment and hit that like button. It really helps me out, and I really appreciate it. Also, if you are new here and if you love political divination, consider hitting the subscribe, become part of the community. We'd love to have you. Now, what are we talking about today? Okay, well, we're looking for 4 things specifically, and then anything else that comes out is just icing on the cake. First thing we're looking at, we want to know if the Insurrection Act will be invoked at or around the second week of October. We also want a forecast for Donald Trump's health. So if there's any updates or indications there that it might be time to crawl into the forever box, we want to know. And then also new scandals, new shenanigans. And then the 4th thing we'll be looking for is just like a general sense of what can we expect, any new moves, is he going to do anything wild and crazy that we haven't seen before? So with that said, let's go ahead and start laying down. These cards are so eager to talk. Listen, they are eager. Let's go ahead and start laying down the tableau. We've got a sudden revelation, possibly. Looks like he's coming up on some type of pretty serious challenge, and that is in the top line. So it's something big. Could be an enemy, could be just a challenge in general, but I feel like it's going to stop some progress, whatever it is that ends up coming out in context here. We'll figure that out as we go, but stop progress. Progress in government and access in government. And then we have the handshake card. So last time I did a tableau for Trump, this was Jelane's pardon card / commute, sentence commute. So we may or may not be looking at more developments with Ghislaine Maxwell. Let's go ahead and get the second row and see what comes out. So I'm going to pause right there for just a second before we get any more cards down. This is kind of a frightening message because I have to tell you kind of a little backstory here. When I first started learning Lenormand and learning about, how people interpret the cards, the Lily card, a lot of people, really advanced readers would kind of allude to a military energy surrounding the Lily card. Now, in the political readings here, we reassign as Donald Trump's duty to the country as the president. It can also be a card of old age and things like that. But next to the political violence card, it's kind of startling considering what's going on currently. And we are asking specifically about the Insurrection Act. So to have these 2 cards come out together, not feeling great about that. And it doesn't absolutely 100% have to mean, military violence. But I do need to point it out because it is there. And incidentally, followed up with the snake and the cross. This is, a burden you didn't see coming, something maybe that you didn't expect, but very heavy, very burdensome. Not a situation that is good for sure. So let's go ahead and get the next 4 cards. Looking right here at the second half of the second line, these 3 cards together are an energy that is very reminiscent of a passing of some type of death. Because we have the coffin, we have the burden of the cross, and we have the tree, which can refer to things like a long time or striving to thrive or well-being. And so I'm just kind of getting the energy with these 3 cards, 2 of which are half the heart of the story of this tableau. We may see some type of significant passing of something. Now, this could be a person. It might be the Constitution. We don't know. We don't know yet. But there is certainly an energy here of some type of loss. Now, the interesting thing is that immediately after those three cards, we have the moon and the clover. And together, if you read them together, kind of implies don't take this too seriously. There is a sense of fear here that could be big and overwhelming, but don't take it too seriously. Now, the moon on its own is a lot about reputation and reflection and things like that. And the clover, can obviously be like small opportunities, risk, luck. But I think together is what really is important when you combine them. Don't take this too seriously. So it kind of looks like the cards are telling us that something pretty significant might happen around the second week of October. And it may be very scary, but kind of keep your head on straight and kind of see through maybe what the powers that be want you to see or the way that they want you to perceive it. So big, important message right there. Let's go ahead and get the third line. So we've got the administration coming through. We do not have Trump yet, interestingly enough. It kind of so far, we're halfway through the third line and we're not seeing Donald Trump make an appearance in his own tableau. So kind of getting the sense that whatever we're seeing on the table in this reading, he's not going to have a whole lot of control over the big picture story. So we've got Fox, Mouse, the administration, because we reassigned this card, and then we've got Bear. So a very interesting combination here, maybe some kind of big, powerful situation with the administration or involving the administration. We've got some self-interest, something is devalued or taken down a notch, taken down a peg, which is interesting. It's right below the political violence card. So it kind of makes me wonder if we're going to see a message about the fighting, the military stuff gets reduced to some degree. So let's keep going. Finishing up the third line here. Still no Donald Trump. Interesting. Always love pointing that out because, usually indicates that he's not having a very good week. And we love that for him. So what do we got here? With the mice and the fox, this says this could be corruption. And we have the bear here. So I feel like these four cards definitely go together. Corruption, losing trust, or something eating away at trust in kind of a big way. And who is in the center of this big eating away of trust? The administration. So that makes a lot of sense because we just had that situation with Pam Bondi, where she went in front of House Oversight Committee and it was a total disaster. So kind of feeling like this line probably is referring to things like that, the administration, losing trust, corruption, kind of a big situation. It could escalate. It could actually get quite a bit worse with the bear here. And it also, the bear as a person, combined with the administration, this could be top level administration. So definitely like Pam Bondi. And it may turn out that the case with her going in front of Congress, kind of explodes into something a little bit bigger. Then we move on to Bear and Stork. And this is like a big controlling energy that is kind of unreliable and stable because it's kind of always moving around and flying off. And then with the bouquet, flying towards flattery, kind of chasing your own priorities and chasing praise. And then we have the birds and the rider, which are both conversation cards about talking. So it's almost like it's telling us there's something here about trying to repair the distrust and the corruption with some type of messaging about flattery. And sometimes I think of this card as Caroline Leavitt bringing messages and bringing propaganda. And so this line is pretty timely and relevant considering what we've seen happen this past week. Very interesting. Let's go ahead and get the fourth line down. Interestingly enough, we've got with the child, the heart, and the stars. This is kind of like a childlike wonder and desires. And, wishing on a star, your heart's desire is fulfilled kind of energy. And then followed up with the cloud, big shift. Big shift, okay? Then we've got the garden, the letter. Where's Donald Trump? Here's the loyalists. No Trump. All right. That is interesting. Wow. Very interesting. So let's take a look at this bottom line before we get the fate line. Starting at the center, we've got some confusing public situations, confusing gatherings, a group of people met with a lot of confusion. And then over here, we've got these hopes and dreams, these childish wants and desires. Feels kind of very like, not necessarily immature, but more of like, hoping for something without understanding that it comes at a certain cost, like not understanding how realistic a desire is, if that makes sense. That's kind of the energy I'm getting from these three cards. And then over here, we've got the loyalist messaging and then an abundance. So an abundance of messaging coming from loyalists. This could be civilian MAGA. This could be famous MAGA, like podcasters and Laura Loomer and things like Laura Loomer. I don't like her. But anyway, so it could be, top level MAGA, could be bottom level MAGA. Interestingly enough, I did see at some point, and we'll probably work our way back to it, I did see some things in here that indicated even more support for MAGA kind of falling off the bandwagon. We see that in pretty much every tableau for Trump. And there's usually a surge of people unplugging from the MAGA movement every time it happens. Now, I want to say that, I've told you guys that a bunch of times before, and I don't know about you all, but I go hunting for this stuff, and I see tons of people coming out nowadays. Like, I voted for Trump 300 times. Not really. I'm being facetious. And now I don't think that he's doing what we elected him for. And, I don't like what he's doing. And I'm hearing people kind of wake up to the situations with the health insurance and all sorts of things like that. And they're kind of hitting this wall of cognitive dissonance where they have to finally confront the fact that he took advantage of them and their ignorance of the political system and the way things work. And so it always comes out, at least to some small degree in the tableaus that we do, it is a consistent problem for Donald Trump that he is continually losing support. But what's really important to note about this situation is that when I say this, I don't mean that these people are becoming woke overnight. You know what I mean? They're not switching teams. I think we saw that with the, I don't even want to say his name, the podcaster guy with the weird gums. We saw that with what happened to him a while back, a few weeks ago. There are a lot of people who are not necessarily MAGA who are still on that bandwagon. And I think that's the bandwagon we need to be worried about and the one we need to pay the most attention to. Because while MAGA loses support and becomes more unstable, there is still a very dangerous and terrifying movement underlying MAGA. And so that's where these people are retreating to. This is also something that came out in a tarot reading earlier this year, is that they have basically another tree to jump to as they abandon the MAGA tree. And that movement, I think, is far worse than MAGA. It's, it's leveled up. So just wanted to throw that out there. because I don't think I've ever clarified that before. When I say that MAGA is losing support, it doesn't mean that they're coming to our side. It doesn't mean that they're, going left. Some of them maybe, but for the most part, I think they are moving on to more dangerous territory. Okay, let's get the fate line and see if Donald Trump makes an appearance in his own tableau. Okie dokie, so let's start our main interpretations for this tableau. And I'll tell you, this is kind of a strange tableau. I'm already seeing a big pattern here and the overall theme. The theme is a message of fear and how to react to it or how not to react to it. That's the overall thing that I'm getting from what I'm seeing here on the board. So our questions are, will Trump invoke the Insurrection Act? I think the answer is it's very likely. And the reason I say that is because of this theme of fear and messaging and because of this line right here. So I think to answer that question, yeah, I think there might be a good chance that he'll do it. I don't think that people should take it as seriously as he's probably hoping that we take it, okay? Because I'm getting a real big sense that this whole thing is for show and it is to basically control people and kind of, oppress people mentally and emotionally. And that is going to come out in some of these cards specifically. For our health question, we can't get a solid read on the health forecast because Donald Trump didn't show up in this tableau. Now, I think it's interesting to point out that since he didn't, I think this is another piece of evidence that a lot of the things that are happening right now are not orchestrated by him. I think there are people in his administration who are coming up with these ideas and cranking out these maneuvers to scare the American people. And I know a lot of people believe that, and there's a lot of talk about that. And I think this just kind of goes to show that that is probably the case. But as far as health reading, we're not going to get much on his health here. New scandals, shenanigans, and his next moves. His next moves kind of come out down here in the fate line. We've got, like with the ring, we always reassign the ring to his shadowy alliances. So that's, at this point, based on the context here, this is the Stephen Millers and the J.D. Vance and the Heritage Foundation energy coming in here. And I think what we're seeing in the fate line is that all of this is very predictable. What we're getting ready to see from the administration is not anything that we haven't seen before because we have connections, links, affiliations, predictability. With the book, we have facts, knowledge, truth, finding out truth. With the White House, private matters, and confirmed habits even is one of the meanings for this card. And then we have the whip, which conflict, argument, debate, punishment, but also repeated actions. So the big energy in the fate line is that we are going to see him continue to do what he's already doing. That's not going to change too much. But let's take a look at some other things here. So we've got, if we look at the four corners, we've got the lightning card and we've got the handshake card. Now the handshake card's going to stay a little bit in obscurity for the rest of this reading because I didn't necessarily assign it to the Ghislaine Maxwell situation like I did in the last tableau. So it may represent that, it may not. But what we do have is with the child and the fish card here, this looks like some type of irresponsible spending. And then, with the lightning card factored in, it's whatever it is, it's fast. So this looks like some kind of fast deal that involves spending. Okay, that's what I'm getting from the four corner cards. Now I want to draw your attention back to this side over here and this little block of cards because there's something really interesting to be pointed out about this. And this may be why this card could indicate something with Maxwell, Epstein, etc. Remember, we had the moon card and the fears, okay? So moon and key, if we start looking for context around the moon and key here is like access to secret or hidden information or even fears. So that would make a lot of sense in regard to, what Maxwell does from here and how the Epstein files play out and getting the 218th signature in Congress. There's a lot here, but it's vague. Okay, so it feels like there's not enough cards to kind of convey every single incident, but all of the incidents combined will kind of have a similar energy. And if we keep going, we look at like the moon card and the bird card. This is like emotional unrest, okay? With the rider, down here, we're looking at a situation of unsettling news. And this makes sense with this entire line, but it also makes sense with this block here. So it maybe not something to do with the Epstein files and Ghislaine Maxwell and, how things progress in Congress. And then we kind of combine it like with the bouquet card here, exaggerated emotion. So there's this big energy of negative emotions and emotional well-being and heightened emotions, just something really scary over on this side of the tableau here. And then with the tower, if we look right up here, we got the tower, which is like emotional withdrawal. So I think the big message, the most prominent message in this entire tableau, I'm getting the feeling that this is mostly about the Insurrection Act. Because we do have, this military fighting and burdensome endings and all that, and then this big scary emotional situation. Okay, so once again, just another reason that I think it is very likely Donald Trump he'll go ahead with the Insurrection Act, and then things are going to play out in a very familiar way from there. It'll just be a lot of like hemming and hawing and going back and forth and the same thing he always does, basically. What changes, though, for this block that indicates it could also be representing the Epstein files is we have down here the 3 exit cards are really interesting in this context because we've got the loyalists and then we've got like letter and fish here. So this is conversations in hopes of gaining something. So it could be that, his famous loyalists are trying to propagate some type of message to get people to agree with them. And that kind of sounds like Congress a little bit. And then going back up here, if this is tied to this could be that we see the loyalists in Congress going around trying to change minds about the signatures and just trying to shift where that situation goes. It can also be a reference to financial records as well. So it could be that the loyalists, like, Mike Johnson and stuff, could be sitting on some type of financial records. With this whole line together, it makes a little bit more sense because, like, we've got this infatuation and, with these two together, like reconciliation, coddling, repairing a scenario. And why are they repairing? Because there's some type of energy here of deceit in the public view, maybe coming forward with like a new persona or being in a confusing social situation. So this is like some type of strategy to either confuse people or using the fact that people are already confused to your benefit. And then again, we end up with the financial records and the, conversation about finances coming from the loyalists. So there's something big happening here. I'm not 100% where it's going to happen. I get the feeling that it maybe is Congress related. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on this one. Hopefully that's enough details to kind of make this line clear, though. the fact that everything is kind of tangled and jumbled here and Donald Trump's not on the board, it's given me the feeling that things are so chaotic and out of control right now that it's hard to kind of get a feel for the regime's energy at this very moment because they are out of control at this very moment. You know what I mean? So lots of jumbled information. I hope that, somehow I was able to make it clear, concise, and kind of get the point across without being too rambly. There are some other things here. I won't spend forever pointing stuff out. But like if we do look at some of the diagonals, again, we're seeing this strange financial irresponsibility, the sneakiness, the questions, the deceit surrounding something financial. I feel like we're probably going to see, like, something has to happen with the Epstein files soon. So I don't know how that's going to go. It feels like it changes every day. But there is this vague sense that will be the thing. That'll be like the most damning evidence is some type of financial records or, something involving finances. That will be the one thing that Trump can't really run from as far as the Epstein files. Like, he'll be able to have some level of plausible deniability for all of these things, but then there'll be like one financial connection or like, one group of financial connections that he just really can't come up with any excuse for. And I feel like there may be a little sense of that here. One thing's for sure, the second week of October is going to be insane. Whatever this scary stuff is that's fixing to happen, don't be scared. It's a trick. It's a trap. They want us to be scared because scared people are easy to control. Do not be afraid. Somehow, some way, we're all going to get through this, and eventually someday it's going to end. And I'm not going to be too hopeful and talk about the fact that it really kind of looks like Trump. I'm not even gonna mention that, but in the off chance that something happens in the second or third week of October, then I guess I told you so. Anyway, guys, I hope that this was, I know it was a little bit messy, but I hope that it was still enjoyable. If you like this reading, enjoyed this video or gained anything from it, please hit the like button. And if you're new here and you like political divination, hit the subscribe, stick around, become part of the community. Really appreciate it. We'd love to have you. All right, guys, until next time, I will see you later.